Today on Missing Number, a Sonic 06 outtake that was left in the game.
Head to Wave Ocean again.
A secret downloadable Steam game that's 2 decades old. And was the Game Boy creator killed by the Yakuza? Missing Number starts now. Sonic 06 is often derided as a janky mess, and one piece of dialogue in the game is just another example of why that is. During Shadow's story campaign, you'll come across an archaeologist named Adriana who needs to be rescued from monsters that are surrounding her. Once you save her, she explains that she's researching the Scepter of Darkness, a secret magical object that was created to seal an evil entity named Mephiles the Dark. She then helps you find the scepter, which appears at a fountain after you light the fountain's pillars with purple flames.
Now I can finally stop Mephiles.
Once you grab the scepter, a security agent contacts you with urgent news that one of your allies has engaged Mephiles. Here is that message.
Good. Now I can finally stop Mephiles.
Agent Shadow, E123 Omega has engaged Mephiles. Head to the Wave Ocean, head to Wave Ocean. Agent Shadow, E123 Omega has engaged Mephiles. Head to Wave Ocean immediately.
The voice actor actually flubs his lines and ends up saying it twice.
Agent Shadow, E123 Omega has engaged Mephiles. Head to the Wave Ocean, head to Wave Ocean immediately. Agent Shadow, E123 Omega has engaged Mephiles. Head to Wave Ocean immediately.
I played Sonic 06 years ago when it came out, but I don't remember noticing the outtake at the time. It makes you wonder how something like this was overlooked, especially since the subtitles remain on the screen the entire time.
Head to the Wave Ocean, head to Wave Ocean immediately.
Here's a dummy. According to the cutting room floor, this is a placeholder image with unfortunately placed text. The image is from the debut trailer of Sonic Forces that was meant for theater previews. The image is unused and can be found in the game's files labeled UI_title_end.pack. If you like this video so far, be sure to subscribe, like, and click the bell icon for notifications. If you have any gaming myths, mysteries, oddities, or Easter eggs, be sure to let me know. You can also check out my other YouTube channel and watch me live on Twitch. The links are in the video description. Now back to the show. There is a secret game on Steam that can't be found in the store. It's a nearly 20-year-old game that was removed by Valve, but despite that, the game is still downloadable to this day. To install it, open both your Steam client and web browser, then in the web browser's address bar, type steam:/install/92. An install prompt will then appear for a mysterious 38 megabyte game called Codename Gordon. This is a fan-made Half-Life game that was made in 2004, and the first thing that catches your attention is the main menu theme.
Mr. Freeman, Mr. Freeman, Mr. Freeman, Mr. Freeman, Mr. Freeman. Ooh, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
It's a quirky and catchy song that incorporates voiceover lines from Black Mesa security guards in Half-Life 1. As for the game itself, it's a 2D side-scroller where you play as Gordon Freeman, who's actually stuck in a 2-dimensional world. The third dimension has literally been removed by some greater power, and it's up to you to fix this crisis. The meta humor sets the tone of Codename Gordon as you kill zombies and combat soldiers with a crowbar and pistol in familiar places like City 17. There's also a buggy driving level, a Strider boss battle, and light puzzles that require objects to be moved via the gravity gun. You can even use environmental hazards to kill enemies. Additionally, you'll meet characters like Barney Calhoun, Alex, and the G-Man who don't have voiceover lines and just mumble. Not only that, but Freeman has dialogue options that consist of just emoticons, which is apparently poking fun at how Freeman is a silent protagonist. What's more, the game includes a nebulous bonus bird game that not only contains error text, but lacks a clear explanation of the objective. Apparently you have to score points by keeping the birds in the air. Perhaps this would explain the excessive amount of birds in the campaign. Overall, Codename Gordon is a pretty impressive game for a fan project that was made in 2004 using Flash and Photoshop. It's surprisingly accurate to Half-Life, and it's higher quality than what you'd expect, despite the game's awkward aiming and abrupt head-scratching ending. To even play Codename Gordon, players needed a whopping 1.6 GHz processor, which was a lot at the time. The most notable thing about the game, however, is that it featured early Half-Life 2 assets that were not publicly available at the time. In fact, there are things in the game that aren't in the retail version of Half-Life 2, like the Ravenholm trap-down docks, as seen in the E3 2003 demo, and the early designs of the buggy and combine. Codename Gordon was also the first Half-Life game to feature the gravity gun, and is the only official 2D Half-Life Flash game. The fan project was actually published by Valve, and was released 6 months prior to Half-Life 2 coming out in 2004. At the same time, the game was also released after the infamous Half-Life 2 source code leak in 2003. So you wouldn't think that Valve would have been too keen on collaborating with the public on anything Half-Life related, but the team at Valve loved Codename Gordon so much that they ended up aiding the developers of the game by giving them private Half-Life assets, all without having to sign an NDA. The actual developers of Codename Gordon are Paul T. Kama and Sunke Cicero, who are Half-Life fans that worked for a now-defunct game company called Nuclear Vision Entertainment. Gabe Newell himself even got involved with Codename Gordon, saying that Valve was initially going to release the game on April Fool's Day. There was going to be a fake press release stating that due to immense pressure of releasing Half-Life 2, Valve found a way to ship the game sooner by cutting some features like the third dimension. That would explain the game's cheeky story. Codename Gordon was released for free on May 17, 2004, and within the first month, the game was downloaded over 1 million times and received critical praise. However, Nuclear Vision eventually went bankrupt and shut down, and the company's official website was taken down. It's rumored that the website was either bought or hacked, and that it was filled with porn and viruses. This was a problem since on the game's main menu, players could visit the company's website by clicking on this banner. And so because the website was hard-coded into the game, Valve was forced to remove the title from Steam in 2008. When I clicked on the in-game banner myself, it opened my web browser and quickly flashed some generic links before bringing me to a blank page. Nothing happened, but when I visited the game's official website, halflife2d.com, which doesn't appear in the game itself, an antivirus URL blacklist prompt appeared. This would indicate that the rumors may have been true, but it seems like people confuse Codename Gordon's website with Nuclear Vision's website, which are two separate things. Even though Codename Gordon was delisted from Steam, the game itself and App ID were never removed, and so to this day, users are still able to download and play the game, even after Flash was discontinued. The most influential Nintendo employee isn't Shigeru Miyamoto. Arguably, it's Game Boy creator Gunpei Yokoi, and there's been a long-running conspiracy theory that he was killed by the Yakuza. The origin of this myth is based on how Nintendo was initially a company that made numberless nature-themed picture cards called Hanafuda. Up until 1889, they were banned in Japan due to its ties with gambling and crime. Despite its shady history, a man named Fusahiro Yamauchi ended up creating Nintendo to manufacture the now legal high-demand cards. Nintendo's biggest customers were the Yakuza, since they used the cards for underground gambling. What's more, Nintendo was located in Kyoto, Japan, which was home to a Yakuza organization called Aizuka Tetsukai. In 1965, Nintendo hired Gunpei Yokoi to maintain the machines that printed the Hanafuda cards. If a card had any imperfections, the Yakuza would get upset since cheaters could identify which card was what. According to a book called The History of Nintendo, as reported by Kotaku, Yokoi revealed that, quote, people from the local mafia would often come to Nintendo very angry. During the 1960s, as parlor games were in decline, Nintendo got into the love hotel business where people could rent rooms to have sex. The Yakuza even reportedly made a deal with Nintendo that allowed Yakuza's prostitutes to use the hotels for work. Eventually though, Nintendo pulled out of this unsavory business. One day in 1966, Nintendo president Hiroshi Yamauchi noticed a toy that Yokoi made for fun in his spare time. It was the Ultra Hand, which Nintendo ended up selling to huge success. From the 1960s to the 80s, Yokoi created more toys for Nintendo and was eventually promoted to Nintendo's first game designer and head of research and development. Yokoi ended up creating the Game & Watch, the NES Light Gun, Rob the Robot, and even the ubiquitous D-pad on controllers. Yokoi also mentored Miyamoto, who created Donkey Kong, and both Miyamoto and Yokoi collaborated on Mario Bros. Additionally, Yokoi was the producer of Duck Hunt, Metroid, Yoshi, Kid Icarus, and Fire Emblem. Yokoi's biggest accomplishment, however, was the Game Boy, which came out in 1989 to massive worldwide success. However, on July 21st, 1995, Yokoi's string of successes would come to an end as the Virtual Boy that he created was an abysmal failure. It was an expensive head-mounted display that produced stereoscopic 3D graphics and red colors that caused eye strain. A year later, on August 15, 1996, Yokoi left Nintendo after 31 years, and rumors swirled that he quit in shame due to the Virtual Boy. Usually, executives in Japan tend to stay with one company for life, and when Yokoi left, it was reported that Nintendo's profits and stocks fell, which caused the Tokyo Stock Exchange to halt trading. Yokoi ended up starting his own toy and game company called Coda Laboratory, and partnered with Nintendo's rival Bandai to make the WonderSwan handheld gaming console. However, Yokoi would never see the console's release. On October 4th, 1997, at 7:15 p.m., Yokoi was in a car with a male driver who was a Nintendo associate named Etsuo Kiso. They were on the 2-lane Hokuriku Expressway and ended up rear-ending a truck in front of them. Both men stepped out of the car to inspect the damage, when suddenly a car hit both of them from behind. Kiso survived with injuries, but Yokoi died. He was 56 years old. It was a tragic accident, but according to a conspiracy theory, this was no accident. The driver of the car that killed Yokoi was a Yakuza hitman hired by Nintendo president Yamauchi. Yamauchi was livid that Yokoi ended up working with a rival company to make a Game Boy competitor. And because Yokoi probably shared Nintendo trade secrets, something had to be done. Yamauchi allegedly had influence over the police due to his wealth, and it was rumored that Kiso, the man that was in the car with Yokoi, was hired by Nintendo to drive the car to make sure that Yokoi was in position to be killed. There's also the notion that Yakuza typically make their murders look like accidents, but according to Jake Adelstein, who spoke to Kotaku and is the author of Tokyo Vice and co-editor of the Japan Subculture Research Center, if Yakuza really wanted to get away with murder, they would make it look like a suicide, since in Japan, autopsies are performed on only 4% of suicide victims. The truth is that Yokoi wasn't murdered. According to the October 6, 1997 edition of the Asahi newspaper, as reported by Kotaku, the truck that Yokoi and Kiso rear-ended was driven by a 36-year-old man named Takashi Okushima who sustained injuries. And the driver of the car that hit Yokoi and Kiso was a 55-year-old man named Gen Tsushima who worked in the tourism industry. Tsushima, along with his 46-year-old wife who was also in the car, sustained chest injuries. At the time of the accident, it was probably dark outside and hard to see, and combined with how Japanese expressways are narrow and dangerous, it's not hard to believe that there would be an accident. In a November 1996 issue of Japanese magazine Bungei Shunju, which was republished by LiveDoor, Yokoi dispelled the rumors from publications like the Nikkei that he left Nintendo due to the Virtual Boy's failure. Yokoi clarified, quote, The day before I retired, the Nikkei did a big feature on me. In reality, I did not resign to take responsibility for the Virtual Boy's failure. Since before that, I was thinking that when I turned 55, I wanted to become independent. Yokoi added that he wanted, quote, a job that would allow me even more freedom with my ideas. Basically, as Nintendo got bigger and made more money, the company had to appease shareholders, and so Yokoi had less freedom and creativity to create niche toys that he wanted to make. Yokoi went on to say, quote, I have absolutely no feelings of resentment towards Nintendo. Additionally, Nintendo's PR purportedly responded to Yokoi's exit with surprisingly frank and casual language, stating, quote, it is reality that Mr. Yokoi has indeed left, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the failure of the Virtual Boy. There's no doubt that the Virtual Boy was a failure, but the head of the company himself has said that the blame for that rests on the decision to sell it to begin with. The D-pad and Game Boy that Mr. Yokoi developed are incredible. Such a man taking the blame for the 32-bit device and leaving the company is completely made up. Nintendo added that the timing of Yokoi's departure and Virtual Boy failure was, quote, absolutely coincidental, and that Yokoi already indicated beforehand that he wanted to pursue new opportunities. The Yokoi Yakuza rumor came out during the early years of the internet when it was harder to verify information. And considering Nintendo's history with the Yakuza, some people really thought it was possible that Nintendo would murder the Game Boy creator. Yokoi was so influential to Nintendo that to this day, Nintendo still follows his philosophy of favoring cheaply made products that are fun and unique to play over cutting-edge technology and graphics that Sony and Microsoft compete over. That would explain things like the Nintendo Labo,